This is a download from BFM89.9, the business station.
Good afternoon and welcome to the show. I'm Mira Sivasudi. What makes a good leader and can good leadership skills be taught? Well, here to join this discussion on leadership and innovation in the Asian context are Samuel Kim and John Lee. No, I've got the wrong names actually. I've got Samuel Kim and April Bang, both from the Center for Asia Leadership Initiatives. Samuel's actually the founder and CEO, and April is a fellow. This is her first visit to Malaysia and being a part of that fellowship, the track that's going on. Welcome to the show. How are both of you today?
Oh, good.
Very well.
Apologies for that. I know one of your guests, John, decided not to turn up today, didn't he?
He's actually conducting a workshop today.
Right now, as we speak. Okay. Samuel, just tell me a little bit more about, for those of us who are not terribly sure of what the Center for Asia Leadership Initiatives is all about, how did it come to be?
So the Center for Asia Leadership Initiative was established to serve the purpose of channeling the great programs at Harvard, so that we could provide the skills and the tools to the Asian community, so that the individuals that we meet are able to pick up these skills and the tools and the right set of mentality, so they all can become capable leaders in solving the problems that they face in their own respective communities.
There must have been a reason why you decided to do this. Did you recognize a gap that, Asians didn't quite have that sort of leadership skill while they were in university?
So way back in 2012, I had a chance to bring about 36 friends of mine from Harvard Kennedy School of Government. I brought them to Korea, and we were able to have a chance to meet up with the corporate leaders, the political leaders. And one thing in common that they said was that despite that Koreans spend so much time and effort, say 12 years plus 4 years of college education, still from the perspective of the corporations, they didn't really have the skills and the tools which the companies can tap into. And so there was actually a mismatch between what the companies wanted, what the government wanted, as opposed to what the educational institutions in Korea were promoting.
Right.
And then later on, after 2 weeks, I also had a chance to organize a trek to 7 countries in Southeast Asia. And when I visited these countries, this problem wasn't just limited to Korea. It was actually an Asian problem. So as Asia becomes very important in the 21st century, what these countries needed were the capable leaders who know how to lead, who know how to make change, who know how to solve problems that these communities faced. And by doing that, that is how they will be able to prepare themselves to lead and take a leadership role in the 21st century in the world.
April, is that how you felt? I mean, are you a Harvard graduate yourself?
Yes, I am.
Okay, everybody in this organization is a Harvard graduate.
Yes.
What if you're not? You don't make the cut, do you?
No, we also include fellows from Fletcher and MIT as well.
Okay.
We're very flexible, but it's mostly Harvard, and it's a Harvard-led program.
Okay.
So, yeah.
April, how did you get into the program?
Sure. I'm actually a graduate of the Harvard Kennedy School back in 2006. So it's been 8 years since I've been out of school. But I heard about the program through Samuel and also through John Lim, who's a co-founder of the center, and heard about what they were doing in terms of leadership education and really tapping into the potential and the passion of young people and young professionals that really wanted to make a positive change and a difference in their countries, in their societies, in their communities. And that's something that I'm very much passionate about. And I'm teaching leadership right now at Yonsei University. I'm teaching adaptive leadership, which is a very helpful and useful course that I took at the Kennedy School that was very transformative for me. And so based on the usefulness that I found in the course and the way that it had impacted my life, I adapted it and adjusted it to fit the needs of Korean university students, not just Korean, but Asian in general.
In general. And did you feel that there is a gap between, a disconnect between government, what government needs are, what the students' abilities are, as well as, the private sector in Korea?
I would say, in terms of talking about a gap, I would say that there's a traditional way that students learn, in a traditional way that leadership is understood and exercised, which is not necessarily probably the most helpful or effective right now in a changing context, when information is flowing, when there's a need for innovation and creativity. And so the way students in the past have learned leadership may have traditionally been through a lecture-based approach or reading books or hearing inspirational talks. And that's all very helpful. But how I feel leadership should be learned or can be learned is through practice. And it's actually experiencing and applying concepts that you're learning in the classroom. So the way that I teach leadership or I facilitate leadership is to create the classroom itself to be a learning laboratory, where students have the freedom to experiment, to try and to make mistakes and learn from that.
Did you struggle when you were in Harvard to, bring out those skills in you because of the education system in Korea?
I think
and you're not alone in this.
Yes.
We're no better here in Malaysia.
Yeah, I think I was also educated in the United States, so had a little bit of exposure to both educational systems because I grew up half of my life in the United States and half of my life in Korea. And the challenges that I did face of being in an open environment where I had to take responsibility for my own learning about leadership and not depend so much on the authority figure to tell me what to do and to teach me what I should learn. It was very much a creative, open process where I had to, in the midst of uncertainty, figure things out. And that was challenging, not having the tools or perhaps even the confidence to take initiative and to challenge sometimes even authority structures. And so all of that was very challenging for me, very difficult. But by the end of the class, I would say that I have enhanced my ability and found within myself an adaptive capacity to exercise leadership in different situations, both in and outside of an Asian context. And so I think in Asia, we're used to structure. We're used to a top-down approach to education. And I think that needs to be challenged, and that's something that I'm hoping to bring in to Korea, but also in the Asian context in general, of really empowering students, empowering people to take responsibility for their learning about leadership, but empowering them to experiment, to try different ways of leading. I think that kind of creativity and innovation is very much needed today.
So, Samuel, how did you approach the programs? How did you craft the programs to bring out the best in Asian students?
So what I did was, for me, before going to the Harvard Kennedy School of Government, I worked in different sectors. So first I started my career as a diplomat representing South Korea. And then I worked...
You look very young to be a diplomat to represent South Korea.
Well, I don't know, it happened that way.
Most people from Harvard would go into investment banking. Now, did you dabble with investment banking at any stage?
Yes, I worked for
it's like
investment.
a mantra. You have to do it, don't you? Almost feels like it.
So I worked at the consulting company for 4 years too, and I've served in the army and also at the National Assembly, which is equivalent to Parliament here. After having an experience in diverse, different field, when I went to Kennedy School, the first impression that I got was that they had an incredible program. Not only at the Kennedy School, but if you attend Harvard, you have also the privilege of attending class from in other schools, like Harvard Business School or even MIT, Sloan School of Management. And so going through all these different programs, I realized that, had I brought these incredible programs that I'm learning, I think, why not bring these programs in Asia where Asians, the community in Asia can be benefited because of these programs. As how April has mentioned, these are very, these change the way we think. They change us from within. And they change and they motivate us to become inspirational leaders. And so knowing that, I've taken a few courses in there. My friends who've taken other courses, a group of us got together and discussed about what could be the programs that we can bring to Asia. And so we came up with 21 programs, the programs coming from 8 different schools, and we launched them this year in January. And so it's actually my second time visiting Malaysia. And at one of the universities here, Sunway University, we launched a program. And that's where we had 21 programs conducted. not only in Malaysia, but also in other 5 countries. And the result, the outcome, the impact was tremendous.
Right.
A lot of people were impacted, and we're so happy to see, we're very encouraged to see how we could even promote this more so that more people could be impacted.
Sure. And this is called the Asia Leadership Track.
Yes.
And it's running, it has run in 3 different countries already.
So far, it has run in 16 countries, over 24 cities in Asia.
Since this year?
Since 2012.
12, okay.
Yes.
And this year?
Yeah. This year, we've already had our first, the second track, 5 countries in Asia. That includes Malaysia. Our last track was in June, where we visited 6 countries, other 6 countries in Asia. And for this summer, the past 2 months, we are doing a leadership camp and conferences, just limited to camp and conferences on the topic of leadership and innovation. And so far, we've visited 14 cities, doing these programs with about 4,000 people in Asia so far.
So that means April has gone around to these 14 cities?
No, just to Malaysia.
Just to Malaysia. So you come
She
and
loves
join
Malaysia.
it.
That's why she's here, just for
So
Malaysia.
you get to choose one destination and follow the camp from there?
I think I'm an anomaly. Most of the fellows, I think, have traveled together to all the different countries. I was invited to join the Malaysia part of the trek, so this is actually my first time working with the trek as a fellow.
What have you taken away so far?
So
It
far,
started already, hasn't it?
It has.
When did it kick off, Samuel?
Yesterday, we had a conference. We had about 430 attending the conference, and today is our first day for the leadership camp.
How's it going so far?
So far, I'd say I'm very inspired and encouraged. I'm here mainly to learn from the students and the young professionals here of the wealth of resources and experience that they bring, and to see how the model of adaptive leadership education works in the Malaysian context. So I think just looking at the program, seeing how like-minded individuals with different experiences, expertise, and skill sets come together as a team to serve, in a sense, to give to the people here and to empower them. But in turn, there are things that we take away, and our takeaways are very much the learning that we receive, the inspiration and the encouragement that we receive as well, as much as we would like to give. And so it's been fascinating to observe how all of this works together, to see collaboration that takes place across countries, across educational institutions, across corporations even. I would say this is an ideal form of just collaboration and social entrepreneurship, innovation, leadership really coming together in practice to make this happen.
Fantastic. We'll come back and find out how this social profit organization, Center for Asia Leadership Initiatives, and what does social profit even mean? I've heard of, not-for-profit. I've heard of social enterprises. Social profit, not terribly sure. Samuel can help us understand that. If you have a question for them, send it through. It's 016-201-9000 or tweet BFM Radio.
This is a download from BFM89.9, the business station.
Good afternoon and welcome back. I'm Mira Sivasudi. In the studio with me, Samuel Kim. He's the founder and CEO of the Center for Asia Leadership Initiatives. April Bang, she's a fellow for the Center for Asia Leadership Initiatives. I mean, they're all here in Malaysia for the Asia Leadership Track. Am I correct?
Yes.
It's a culmination of the track throughout a few cities in the region?
Yes. So our program is divided into 2. One, it's we do a socio-economic cultural tour to Asia, where we visit several cities in Asia, mostly the capital cities. What we do is that we visit these countries because we want to learn about Asia. I mean, 21st century is often called the age of Asia, and many people, unfortunately, do not know well about Asia. So by us going there, we have about 40 to 45 individuals from a couple schools, from Harvard, MIT, and Fletcher, coming and visiting these countries by talking to the leaders from nonprofit, corporate, national leaders. We try to understand what the opportunities and what are the challenges that these countries have. And by engaging with them in a discussion, we learn about these countries.
What's coming through in Malaysia so far?
So far, I mean, I visit a lot of countries, different countries, and so far, I see a lot of energy in this country. And I always compare Malaysia to Korea. And Malaysia, as how one professor I met yesterday said, Malaysia basically has everything that there is. It is really how to mobilize, how to bring all these different resources to get this country going, and even to become an advanced country. You've got all the potential resources there. And so I see a lot of energy, passion in the young people, like the people that I've interacted today. And the purpose of us having a meeting, even having a program with them, is to really encourage them how to identify the opportunities in this country, how to have the right set of mind so the work can be done in this country, how to tap into these potential resources with which you can mobilize to even make this country a better place to live. So that's how I see Malaysia through these programs here.
I'm going to push you further. What are the opportunities?
Here in Malaysia,
Yes.
I think, given the fact that the education, the schools here, especially Sunway University that I collaborate with, they really promote, by bringing these world leading scholars into country. They're really supportive of promoting these programs. So this time we bring 9 of the 21 programs we have, and they're very supportive of us promoting these different programs by helping them to put into practice of what we have learned at Harvard, and teaching them the individuals here in Malaysia the fact that the environment is there, the support is there. And I'm very happy about
Just
that.
relatively fragmented, I suppose. People just need to come together and,
Yes,
on the
yes.
same page,
Right,
and then
right.
mobilize from there.
Right.
What is a social profit organization? And that's what you are.
Yes, social profit organization is not either a nonprofit or a social entrepreneurial company, or it's more it's a for-profit company. It is actually a mixture. So what we do is that we run, of the 12 months we have, we run 6 months doing these leadership programs, touring around different cities in Asia. But another half, we do research. So we do research on how we could best disseminate the world-leading best practices at Harvard and also at MIT. And we publish books, we write cases, and we study about how we can improve in our teaching and also learning. And so we do publishing, we do programs. It could involve a for-profit, it could involve non-profit, but all for the purpose of benefiting the society.
Right. So how are you funded? I mean, is the funding enough based on the little commercial work that you do? Is it sufficient to fund the rest?
Yes, part of our program is funded by Harvard. We get a funding from the Asia Center and also the Ash Center, which is a sponsoring organization from Harvard. Very fortunate that Jeffrey Chia Foundation, who owns Sunway University, they have recently donated $6.2 million to Harvard, and very gracious enough, they were able to fund our program, bring the scholars here, bring the fellows here to do the program here. And so many of our programs, standing programs, are sufficient, and so far we've been working really closely with the Jeffrey Chia Foundation to do these programs.
How sustainable is it, though? I mean, funders pull out, and then what happens to you?
So there are 3 different models that we take. One, we are funded, for example, by the foundations. Jeffrey Chia Foundation is one of them, for example, in Malaysia. In other countries, universities support the programs. Even the companies support the programs. And many of the companies in other countries support this program as one of their initiative, social responsibility initiative. And that's how we are funded. And for the remaining of the program, it's funded by Harvard. And very fortunate again, Harvard is very supportive of what we're doing. And now, as we now belong to one of the centers at Harvard, they really support all the programs that we do in Asia at the moment.
Do you see a common thread amongst all participants from the countries in Asia?
Sorry,
Do you see a common thread? As in, is everybody on the same page? Because in the end, Asia or ASEAN countries are going to come together, and we hope to be a powerhouse on our own. Well, that's left to be seen, but the plan is there. But are these leaders pretty much on the same wavelength? Do they aspire? Are their aspirations pretty much the same? What are their priorities really? All of them can't be going into investment banking. I hope not, at least, because the world, somebody needs to save the world. Other than compared to investment banking. So, are they all geared in the same direction?
I think there are keywords that countries want. Of course, they thirst for learning about on the topic of leadership and innovation. But for example, when I visited in Japan, the key word for them was about change. It was about change. Not much more about leadership, but how do we innovate? How do we move on from here? How do we reconfigure ourselves? How do we transform ourselves? It was really about the individuals. Not in terms of the whole group, but just how do we move on from here? How can we change? Whereas in Korea, in, say, Hong Kong, it was less of leadership and more of innovation. But, I mean, on the whole, they're all moving towards the right direction. But there are different keywords that these different communities in Asia were looking for. For example, here in Malaysia, the leadership, I think, is the keyword here. They really want to learn what are the best practices to how we can move, from one point to the other. How can we move to change the society here? So I think depending on where we are at, there are different keywords that these different communities are looking at.
Okay. April, did you feel that coming through at the yesterday and today?
I did in my classroom.
Because it's interesting because you're, pretty much the outsider looking in amongst the Malaysian participants. You do have participants from other countries as well here, or are they all Malaysian?
We have some participants from other countries who are Malaysian but have been studying abroad.
Okay, right. So as an outsider looking in, what's the feeling? What's the feel that you get?
I feel like the center and what the fellows are doing is actually, there is a common thread that they see, but they also see differences. But celebrating the differences and finding a way to actually spur not just innovation within the country, but also spurring collaboration and a lot of cross-cultural learning that takes place from the fellows being able to be in the context of different cultures, but yet in a way threading it all together in publishing books and sharing about their experiences across the country. So they're able to share common threads and common things that they gain and learn from the experience, but also really highlight the differences and the strengths and the gifts that each of the different cities and the countries bring to this, larger endeavor of trying to make the world a better place.
Yeah. Samuel, you talk in Malaysia, we often talk about a knowledge economy now. We've moved from the post-industrial era of, a top-down approach, that kind of thing, to a knowledge-based economy. But you sort of try to drill home the importance of cultivating the creative economy. Do you want to elaborate a little on that and how that will complement the knowledge economy?
Yes. The way I'd frame the world that we are living in is that I think we are moving away from knowledge-based economy, more towards the conceptual economy. What I mean by that is that, knowledge is everywhere. We can Google them, all the stuff that we're looking for, all the information that we're looking for are all in the internet. What is more important is the skill that's required is how do you bring all these different bits of information and how do you create new out of it? It's not just like memorizing or regurgitating these information. As I've told you, they're all there. But how do you bring all these different bits of information, formulate it, and create that into new, something different than how it was in the past? So in that manner, I could consider that we should even go further, that we are not only living in the knowledge economy, but more towards the conceptual age where we need to pick up the skills of creating something new, formulating something new. This is why the topic for the camp and the conference that we're doing is leadership and innovation. And we're tying that leadership and innovation into one theme. Say, you are the leaders, you take lead, and you try to come up with something new, innovating something new as to how we can become a innovative, a better, effective, and strong leaders of change.
Does that make a difference if you're coming from a developing economy, for an example?
I think this refers to any society these days, because now I don't think the accessibility to this information is much of an issue. So we really focus on the leaders who are likely to be the potential leader of the country. So by bringing different people, for example, the program that we're doing, I know that a lot of the institutions have sent their employees and even the schools to this program. And what we're really looking at is that we consider themselves to be the leaders of the country. And these people, these leaders, potential leaders, must be able to pick up those skills and the tools with which they can create something new. That's how we see it.
We've spoken about opportunities. Do you foresee threats, or do you see threats, though? Stumbling blocks towards bringing about or creating more of these leaders? Because if you talk about authorities, sometimes you're quite happy with people who are agreeable with everything that you say. You do not want people to speak up, blah, blah, blah. That just goes on and on. So what are your challenges, or what do you foresee challenges in this part of the region when it comes to creating more innovative leaders?
I think we're having a discussion yesterday. We had a few VIPs coming in and give their talks. One MP mentioned that one thing that young people lack in Malaysia is the confidence.
Yes.
And I say that even for today, I was teaching a workshop on global change agent. I tell them, have confidence. You have so many great resources you have here. And you have to look into how you can be a contributing factor to this country. It's a matter of how you think about how you see your society. Don't just blame it on the leaders. Think about something small, things that you can do. And by beginning from there, by starting from there, build your way up and see, say from 5 years from now, look back. What kind of changes, what kind of effort that you have made to bring about a change in society. And so I'm giving them the confidence, saying that have confidence. Don't try to start something big, something that you think cannot be achieved at this moment, but do things with the things that you can do now. And I've told them, I give this the framework of knowing, doing, and being. And for students, this is the right moment for you to study, because you need to know and you need to have expertise. In order for you to solve the problems, you need knowledge. And on top of that, learn about how you can utilize what you've learned to put into practice how you can change the world. And on top of that, you think about what kind of person you should be. What kind of person you should be so that your impact or your effort can be fruitful. And so that is basically the framework that we bring. And we've given them different tips as to how you can gain confidence and how you can start small, take initiative to start a small change that would later create a huge change.
Sort of moving away from the capitalist mindset, isn't it? To move towards a more socialist kind of mindset, don't you think? Is that what you're imparting? To strike a balance between the both?
I wouldn't necessarily say that because for me, I'd say that as I was traveling to many different countries, hearing from the leaders, I really focus on what the young people lack. And again, a lot of the Asian method of learning is focused on memory. But what I thought was important was teaching them the skills. How do you utilize what you've learned? And how do you translate that into a value add to the society? It's really, we're making an effort. We're inspiring the leaders to make an effort to think about how you can benefit the society. Because there are so many problems we face at hand that needs to be solved. But it can't all be solved by the leaders. So we're all the stakeholders. And we all need to take an action. We all need to take an initiative and start the change. So again, my idea is that we shouldn't be expecting the leaders to change or turn things around. But actually, the work is on us. And we need to identify that. We need to understand that. And that's how how change can take place.
I love it, because what you're saying in a way is also to keep people and planet in mind, really. That's something lacking seriously in the world today. It's been wonderful having both of you on. How do we get in touch with you, and is it too late to be a part of the track in Malaysia?
I think you should contact the Sunway University. I hope they still accept participants.
Okay.
Also, if you want to find out more about us, we have a Facebook,
.com/.
Yes, Asia Leadership. We also have a website, asialeadershiptrack.org. That's where you can find us.
Fantastic. Would you like to leave us with a message, April, based on your experience and as a fellow for the Center for Asia Leadership Initiatives? You have a message for us?
I would say in general about leadership and many people wanting to become better leaders. One thing is to encourage and challenge people that leadership is an activity, and that means that it's accessible and something that everyone or anyone can practice at any given moment. But leadership also requires courage. And so I just want to encourage everyone to overcome their fear, not be afraid of failure, but really see what they can learn from their failure and the valuable experiences and lessons learned from that. But I would say that I'm just very encouraged to be here. I would like to encourage everyone, especially the young people here, to exercise leadership, that they don't have to wait until 10, 20 years down the road to make a difference, but they have that capacity within themselves now, and to take that courage to see what happens when they experiment, take a step out and make a difference.
Samuel?
For me, I'll keep it short. I really resonate to what President John F. Kennedy said. Ask not what the country can do for you, but ask what you can do for the country. So I hope the Malaysian students, the Malaysian individuals with us at the camp will really take this message. Think about what you can do for this country. And not only that, thinking about how you can be a value add. How becoming a right person that Malaysia would need in the future is something that I want these individuals to get away with.
Thank you both very much for joining us today. Samuel Kim, founder and CEO of the Asia Leadership Initiatives, and April Bang, who's a fellow for the Center for Asia Leadership Initiatives on The Bigger Picture, BFM 89.9.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To find more great interviews, go to bfm.my or find us on iTunes. BFM 89.9, the business station.